Son olarak şimdi artık nazım ve nesir yazarlarına bir bakalım. Bunlardan birer tanesi var. Elinizde de notlarda var. Now let's go on with the Greek prose writers and Greek writers, and one of them are for each section. Now we come across with Aesop, the semi-legendary writer or collector of 350 fables. Incredible. 350 fables. Aesop was a slave from Lydia who served Edmund on the island of Samos before being freed. Just imagine that. Although he was a slave, he wrote 350 fables. After extensive travels, many travels, he is thought to have been thrown from a cliff at Delphi after envious Delphians, angered by his ironic tales, hid a golden bowl in his luggage and accused him of theft. The city is said to have suffered a plague and was forced to pay blood money to Edmund's grandson to atone for its savagery. However, this story, like most episodes attached to Aesop's name, contains the element of legend. An ancient biography of Aesop pictures him as a Greek Uncle Remusa, jolly teller of tales and dispenser of homespun wisdom, who confounds the learned men of his day with common sense. The bits of orally transmitted folklore, proverbs, and yarns attribute to Aesop. So, folklore, proverbs, yarns contributed to Aesop were probably written down around 300 BC. The collection known as Aesop's Fables is the product of a Roman slave of the Christian era who compiled books of pointed satiric verse which got him into difficulty with the Emperor Tiberius. Forget about the name. Four overlapping manuscripts contain a series of animal fables as well as stories of men and gods, particularly the mythic narratives about Hermes. We have seen last term, the trickster. For the purpose of educating young readers, each story ends with an explicit moral, such as pay attention to the sentence, to change place is not to change your nature. Türkçemizde diyoruz ya, yedisinde neyse yetmişinde de odur gibilerinden. The greedy, pay attention again, who demand more, lose all. Yani açgözlülük yapma deriz Türkçemizde, biliyorsunuz. Ne kadar çok böyle iştahlıysan, açgözlülük yapıyorsan o kadar şey kaybedersin diyor, bakın. Again, danger often comes from where we least expect. And there is always someone worse off than you. The stories were used as classroom exercises in composition and declamation and as illustrations by many orators, including Abraham Lincoln. Imagine them, the USA president once. Whatever the truth of Aesop's life, it is obvious that he was respected and loved, and indicated by the statue in his honor in Athens. So, when we come for the last time, Greek lyric poets, we come across Sappho, the most famous Greek poet and a particular favorite of the ancient Romans. Sappho, whose name is sometimes given as Sappho, lived in the late 7th century, later than tragedians and comedy writers. According to someone, her work flourished from, forget about the time, the daughter of someone, and she was born on the island of Lesbos, off the coast of Asia Minor. But little of her personal life can be established, known with certainty except that what biographical data she reveals in her poems. She came from an aristocratic background and spent most of her life somewhere. She appears to have enjoyed a freedom not known to mainland girls. So she was a very free character, which was unusual for the island, which encouraged personal growth, education, and artistic expression. Sappho's father died when she was 6, leaving her in the care of her mother and three brothers. One of the three, forget about the brothers, poured wine in the council chamber on holidays. According to Herodotus, ki gelecek hafta bu dersi sizlerle göreceğiz artık son derslerimiz. Forget about Herodotus' brother, was a merchant sailor who traded wines somewhere in Greece and also in Nile Delta, Nil Nehri'nin deltasında da şarapçılık yapmış. And he became enamored, a hetero courtesan. He became a courtesan, bad woman anlamında düşünün. He spent large sums of money, bought her freedom and caused his sister embarrassment because of his devotion to a woman of questionable honor. Sappho gently upbraids in a poem which prays to someone, Aphrodite, for example, for his safe return. Sappho begs him to abandon his daughter affair, which has robbed him of reputation and wealth, and to re-establish his dignified position in the community. Sappho was married to a merchant, and she mentions with affection a blonde daughter. She says, Clays, my beloved, whom she advises to accentuate her fair hair with a garland rather than the purple band. Her devotion to the child is evident in the verse which states, I have a small daughter called Clays, who is like a golden flower. I wouldn't take Croesus' kingdom with love thrown in for her. Concerning her own book, Sappho laments having a short body and dark complexion. She was short and dark in flesh. Another poem that mourns the passing of youth indicates that she may have lived well past middle age. Sappho clearly aligns her loyalties with the muses, musaları düşünün, rather than with the religious worship or political ideology. Although she makes little mention of politics, she didn't deal with politics. Her life was affected by civil wars, iç harpler, and the political turmoil. She was exiled. She lived in Sicily during this troubled but creative period in her life. She wrote short lyrical verse about girls who struck her fancy, hymns to her favorite deities, notably Aphrodite and Hera, and traditional or marriage hymns, which were performed by a chorus to the accompaniment of the lyre at the threshold of the couple's home or outside the bridal chamber. Historians have mused for centuries over Sappho's relationship with the refined young girls mentioned in her more intimate lyrics. So she was interested in young girls. And for those explanation, you can just follow some names as well. Sappho lavished love and attention on her young friends, relishing their delicacy, pay attention, femininity, and grace. Probably they were not a finishing school or religious cult, but their exact position in Sappho's affections cannot be ascertained without more evidence. Whatever the organizing principle of their circle, such a coterie was neither rare nor scandalous. So, legend embellishes the events surrounding Sappho's death. Menander alludes to a tradition that Sappho loved, pay attention, a mythic ferryman, a considered someone Adonis, allegedly favored by Aphrodite. I just skip. Other of her verses stray from Sapphic style. Sappho's Sapphic, pay attention. Instead, datylic rhythms, folk motifs, or epic language can be seen. These poems, one of which details Andromache's arrival at Troy for her marriage to Hector, imitate the high romance of Homer, but maintain the dialect of someone. So Sappho's own short sentences, pay attention, musical phrasing and liquid vowel sounds. Sappho's style, I just skipped, is pleasantly straightforward, direct and simple. Pay attention. She avoids the more intricate strophes which are characteristic of Greek poetry, and she stresses, pay attention, sincere expressions of love and appreciation of beauty, couched in the alien dialect of Lesbos. Her genius for sound and sense, unfortunately, cannot be translated. Sappho was widely read, influencing writers of her own period time as well as later masters. For example, Strabo called her wonder, Plato named her the tenth muse. Hatırlayın dokuz kız kardeşti bu şeyler Musalar. Most Greeks considered her poetry first rate up in a class with Homer's. Dionysius of Halicarnassus düşünün, admired her ability to weave a poem into a unified whole by the natural affinity of the letters. So I just skip the other pages as well. As revealed by her verse, Sappho places no overt trust in an afterlife. When she mentions separation of death, her buoyant faith in memory, which is aided by poetry, restores her joy in people and nature. One of her verses notes, "You may forget, but let me tell you this. Someone in some future time will think of us." The beauty which Sappho captured in her poems becomes her bid for immortality through the enjoyment of those who live after her and who take pleasure in her poems. Evet, for the last time, next week we will go on with an introduction to classical historians and we will complete our term. Hepinize iyi haftalar diliyorum. Kendinize dikkat edin çocuklar. Derslerinize dört elle sarılın, çalışın. See you next week.